What are some company secrets you can now reveal since you don't work for the company anymore? Many years ago I worked with a firm that evaluated medical school applications. Medical schools get so many applications, over 1,000 per year in some cases, that many of them pawn the initial evaluation work off to outside groups, who then subcontract to temp agencies during application season. The school makes the final decision, of course, but the initial pre-evaluation is handled by temps who might not even have degrees. These agencies are paid by quantity and not by quality. There's a strong pressure in the organization to process as many applications as possible, as quickly as possible. It's not a formal quota, but management definitely noticed if your numbers went down. I don't even want to contemplate how many excellent potential doctors my colleagues rejected because they were in too much of a hurry. Some of them likely spent their lives preparing for their med school application only to get preemptively rejected by someone with no medical qualifications. This was 15 years ago, so I sincerely hope the system has reformed since then. They have software to do it now that just dumps to text and scans for keywords. The applications that have the most matching keywords go to the second round. Bed Bath & Beyond will accept a return for any item that isn't their inventory. You can't claim anything is defective. A woman once returned a 75% burnt Yankee candle because the wick dipped into the wax and she couldn't fish it out. She got a 100% refund. A guy brought in a vacuum he purchased probably 9 years ago from a store in another state. It took us about 20 minutes of fishing through an older version of the inventory system to validate that, yes, at one time about a decade ago, BBB carried that SKU. Full refund. In the grand scheme of things, your return is a minuscule fraction of their profits, and keeping you as a customer is worth tossing away some money every now and then. Also, their coupons never expire. Rarely any Jerry Springer show guests have true stories. Source: I was a booker. No, you're supposed to give away secrets in this post. Worked in retail jewelry in Australia. This would apply pretty much everywhere. Most all items for sale, the exception would be promotional pieces, or special collections, has a minimum and a maximum price. Don't take for face value that the price is what you have to pay. Ask straight up what is the minutes on this item. Say it like you know what you are talking about. Sometimes the minutes price can be hundreds lower than the display price. Michael Hill Jewelers will clean all jewelry for free. Yeah, another tip for this is never to say it's too expensive. Say you know what it's worth and the marked price is too high. Never say too expensive, it either makes you seem cheap or makes you seem like you can't afford the item. Both things aren't great when trying to haggle. You want to make the sales guy think you're the best thing since sliced bread. I used to work in the meat department at Whole Foods. Hopefully things have changed, but our manager was insistent on using past due meat to make grinds for burgers, sausages, etc. I once got in trouble because I threw out the ammonia-scented chicken tenderloins that had expired 2 weeks ago, rather than grind them up for chicken patties. Liberty Mutual Insurance puts every claim through an algorithm to determine whether to fight disputes in court. The algorithm is able to guess the lawyers and judge that will participate and decide based primarily on their records. They chose their latest ad campaign by 1. Selecting a color no other major insurers were using, yellow, and 2. They choose their slogan's keyword by finding words other insurers use most often but none featured in their slogan. Responsibility. I think they might have changed the slogan, but I left a couple years ago. Out of all the BS I've read in this thread, this one bothers me a lot. Not sure why. The fresh and packaged in-store deli meat didn't even come from our store and was shipped in every morning with the other chiller items. So many times I had customers ask me if it was packaged by the deli counter and I had to lie. So yeah, if you want fresh meat just buy it from the deli counter. I worked at a UPS store on a military base. When packages came back to use for whatever reason, we always told UPS that we'd donate the contents to on-base thrift store. We'd keep office supply stuff, but that never happened. One cat packaged all his belongings at our store and shipped them prior to leaving for deployment. This was at the start of the Afghan war. He didn't check his shipping label right and about 3 weeks after it shipped it came back to us as denied RTS. We held it for a few months, expecting him to come back. After waiting My boss told me to open it up and take whatever I wanted out of it, trash everything else. So, I opened it and it was like a dream come true. Every gaming system, stacks of games, expensive watches, all sorts of good crap. It didn't feel right. Went in on my day off after hours, looked more inside the box, found a small address book with numbers, got in contact with his parents and explained who I was, how I got their numbers etc etc. Ended up generating a label that night for it and shipped all this guy's stuff out on the store's dime. Boss was p as heck with me for doing that. I deployed 4 times. You the man. Regal Cinemas movie theaters has something called a per cap. Per caps are calculated by dividing the attendance by how much concession sales there are. For example, a low per cap is anything under $3, but a higher one is over $4. If there is a 15-cent variance from one day to the next, you had to fill out a report stating why. You couldn't state things like the obvious. For example, if I manage a theater in Minneapolis, and per cap sucked this past Sunday because everyone was at the Super Bowl, I could not use sports as an excuse even though it was so obvious. Instead I would have to say something like, large groups in attendance who didn't purchase concessions. I'll also shatter another myth that nobody cares if you sneak drinks or bootleg candy in, just make sure you throw it away after the show so as to make cleaning the auditorium easier. It is marginally true that the theater makes most money from the concession stand as we only profit about 15 cents from a movie ticket. The rest goes to Hollywood. However, in the summer, running all that AC, NIN, ice machines, etc, it wasn't uncommon for the electric bill to hit $30,000 or so. Plus rent to the mall was another $60,000 a month, so yeah, no. I've got a lot more if anyone cares. Worked at a 2-star hotel. I was usually the only one there at the desk. Just be nice and patient with us and we will do just about anything to make your stay better. If you act like an butthole, don't expect much. As a front desk person, I have cleaned rooms for people, made breakfast for the morning, installed TVs and programmed them, watched guests' dogs while they went to dinner, and when people have issues with our internet I would get it working for them. Seriously, was a catch-all kind of job. I worked at a car dealership. The $1,200 car care system that we would discount to $900 was applied with about 15 squirts of a spray bottle. Many times I'd hang out with the detail guys so the customer wouldn't get suspicious at a quick turnaround. I used to work in a factory that produced pillows. Let me be the first to tell you, some nasty stuff goes into those pillows. Tell me, have you ever seen those pillows labeled memory foam cluster? Do yourself a favor and avoid them like the plague. What we do is, there is a bale of old, recycled memory foam brought behind the grinder. This bale consists of everything from old mattresses and pillows, to those cooling memory foam pillows, except they are all old and dirty. We cut the bigger pieces into more manageable bits and toss it into a grinder that chops the foam into small, fine cubes. These cubes are stored in a large tank, and then blown into an empty pillow casing using pneumatic pressure. Now we made good pillows too, but for the love of God, stay away from anything labeled cluster. Well crap, out of all the pillows I've used, my memory foam cluster is my favorite pillow. Red Cross makes a ridiculous amount of money selling plasma to makeup skincare companies, and Buffalo Wild Wings. Wings are always frozen, never fresh, and they cook them beforehand and keep them in a warming drawer. The motto is they come for the sauce, not the wings. Worked for a private school. Grades were definitely bought. We were discouraged to give anything lower than a B. Had one principal that told a teacher to take the final for a student that went on summer vacation early. She called it a shadow final and said nonchalantly that it's no big deal. Just answer how you think the student would answer. This school is expensive, and these kids go on to fancy colleges because of these grades. My friend went to a fairly nice school, and one of her favorite professors was telling her about how he failed a student who showed up to like 1/4 of the classes and never did homework, but his family was rich and donated or something. So his parents emailed him asking if he could reconsider moving it up to a B, and he said no. Later on he checked and the school had changed it to a B. At a certain USA airport between New York and Baltimore, the baggage handlers and certain security personnel see passenger luggage as a source of plunder. Then again, this probably isn't a secret. The Canadian Tire in Port Coquitlam, Canada blocks their emergency exits with metal bars to prevent theft and, consequently, prevents a quick exit in case the overly stuffed and flammables-filled building catches fire. Someone use this knowledge to make some money. I'll take 5%. Ralph Lauren's outlet clothing is made for outlet, not from the main stores. Try to avoid going to dental chains, Aspen Dental, etc. They push you to get procedures done you don't need and your appointment times are usually as fast as the doctor can find the first thing that's wrong. Doctors are overworked and this increases the chance they will mess up. If you can't pay, they help you finance, but you'll get hit with a 20% plus interest rate when you miss your first payment. They also overwork and underpay staff, which leads to disgruntled staff who don't care. And like all public service positions, there's no backbone against crappy patients. You have to bend over backward and kiss their asses. The only way it works, and it does, is when you have caring, skilled staff across the board. This rarely happens due to high overturn. I had to get out when the new doctor at our office pulled 2 men teeth in a procedure and had to give a patient a full denture instead of a partial. He blamed the assistant and she was fired. The lab was overwhelmed with extra work from his mistakes. I didn't feel the doctor cared about anything but money and I couldn't morally do it. I couldn't say he was a good doctor when deep down I knew it was a lie. Reasons I hate commercialized medicine. I worked for a cold storage company that held products for good humor. The inside of the freezer was -20 degrees. One day a friend of mine caught some boxes on the racking causing popsicles to go everywhere. When he stepped off his lift to look up into the racking to evaluate the situation, he stepped on a popsicle causing his feet to fly up in the air and busted his head on the ground. He lasted a few days in ICU and eventually passed. Instead of this being a freak accident and giving us time to deal with it, we were all brought into the freezer to look at the frozen puddle of blood to show us what could happen if we aren't careful. Jesus, that is gruesome. A high-class spa I worked at used Epsom salts and vegetable oil for their $65 salt scrubs. I use table sea salt for my salt scrub. Re keeps track of everything you return, just like they keep track of everything you buy. If you abuse their return policy too much, people renting things for a few days or a weekend before returning them are the biggest perpetrators. They'll just stop taking your returns. I guess it's less of a secret and more of a don't be and but warning. Walmart would make us work past our shift and then force us to clock in late the next night to avoid OT. The managers got so paranoid about OT that they started accusing us of going over 40. I was docked 4 hours when I had no overtime and had to use my PTO to get back to 40. This was in 2012 and I live in Oklahoma. The labor board is a freaking joke and the keep you from going over your hours happened at 2 stores I worked at. Both stores also did shady crap like having maintenance work, both cleaning and stocking. I had to stock the first half of the night and clean 5 bathrooms the last half and had to get them all cleaned before 7. I will never work for Walmart again and I warn my friends not to work for them. That is illegal. We didn't meet the contractual obligations to entirely destroy the laptops Google sent to us for decommissioning. We shredded the HDDs and sold the laptops for a profit. Couldn't do crap about the servers though, Google branding all over them. Our company discovered that our recycling partner was doing the same thing. We fired them immediately and started litigation. Panera. Bread comes in as dough in bread pans the night before. Bakers come in the morning and put it in the oven. Everything was pre-made but assembled in store like the paniness. Leftover bread bakery products were free for closing employees to take home. I ate more bagels than I care to admit, starving college student and all. I, too, worked at Panera, although every night we'd donate all of our pastries and untouched breads to local charities, schools, etc. I used to work in skincare. None of the products cost more than $2 to manufacture, but would retail at anything from $20 to $150 per product. Always amazed me how much people would shell out for anything with volcanic clay or snake venom cream. My wife works for a fragrance and body care company. She says the glass bottles and spraying mechanism costs more than the perfume inside the bottle. I DK the legality of this, but it always seemed weird. But we would get bags of another company's product animal premix. and manually transfer that product into a bag of our own. We would give these products lot codes of our own and sell them to customers. Yes, it is illegal. It's called palming or reverse palming off. I used to work for a large smartphone company. During development, we used to go through phases: engineering verification testing stage, design verification test, production verification test, and finally mass production. Each stage was meant to have checkpoints in order to ensure that the final product was built with good quality and any known bugs would be able to ironed out before the product launch. Any bug that was not resolved would potentially have the ability to delay the launch, except that there is a thing called waivers. So the PM could request that certain bugs be granted a waiver delaying the fix of the problem to a later date. No big deal. Every project has a few minor bugs, right? For each stage there would be hundreds of waivers. Some would be minor, to be fair, but sometimes they were definitely not minor. I will never, ever, buy an electronic device in the first 3 months of mass production. Wait for the second wave of production. The quality of the product increases tenfold. Used to work for a coffee shop whose claim to fame was that all food items were made from scratch in-house. All of their pastries were made using Pillsbury dough, and every other kind of dessert was bought from a grocery store. You always want to order your drinks without ice. I've seen ice machines inside at fancy places and you definitely do not want anything in your drink what was inside there before. Ice cube machines are a real shithole in general. Friend of mine worked in a big restaurant chain. He would always complain how disgusting the ice machine was. They'd take the scoop, get their ice and throw it somewhere for the next person to use. Often that place would be on the floor or next to the sink. Some idiot broke a glass when trying to use it as a scoop and didn't bother emptying the ice machine. I worked at UPS ages ago. The word fragile on a box meant nothing to us, so make sure you pack your stuff properly. Secret. I can assure you most things in Tim Hortons are not fresh. Unless you show up at rush hour, then you might get just brewed coffee. I remember when they used to bake pastries and donuts. Now they are 90% made in a factory, and the store just reheats it and calls it fresh. The donut that was reheated this morning may have been made 2 months ago, and it tastes like it too. They tried to mask it by glazing all their donuts and pastries in 2mm of sugar, but it doesn't really help. Pizza Hut have a can of spray-on garlic that they spray on all their pizzas. At least they did in 2012. The only thing not made on site at Cheesecake Factory is, ironically, the cheesecakes. They come in frozen and are thawed out. They go through the trouble of mixing all their sauces and even salad dressings, but not cheesecakes. The cheesecake comes from the Cheesecake Factory. The code for the intercom at Walmart is 4444 on the store phones. Attention ladies and gentlemen. Someone has unauthorized access to the paging system. Thank you, and enjoy your shopping experience. Used to work for Sam's Club. We would routinely take apart the packages of berries, throw out the rotten ones and then refill them. There was definitely no weighing to make sure the amount on the package reflected what was inside. Cleaning up animals after an oil spill is feel-good propaganda to make the public think they are helping. 90% of those animals will be dead within a few days or weeks. They've ingested enough of the oil that they are moving corpses. They, and you Mr. Nice person with a bottle of Dawn dish soap, just don't know it yet. Real oil spill work is done by trained professional crews, not volunteers. If you ever tried to help, you were given busy work to keep you out of the way. I don't know if I'm more disappointed that they cleaned those animals up just for the PR, or that I should have realized that anything covered like that had swallowed more than enough to kill it. It has been several years, but when I worked at certain satellite TV company, they had a value system for customers. You are valued at 1-5 stars, based on how much you spend, and how much they value you as a customer. If you are a higher star value, they will do basically anything to keep you. You will get a ton of services and equipment for free, and they will bend over backwards to keep you from cancelling. If you are a 1 or 2 star, they don't give a crap, especially 1 stars, because it usually means that you are late all the time, or that you don't spend very much. If you call in asking for deals or credits, they won't give it to you. If you threaten to cancel, no one cares. Also, there are special phone lines for people they consider VIPs. They never have to wait on hold, and only special employees are allowed to take the phone calls. I bet this is DirecTV. You have been visited by the romantic doggo. Comment love is magic so you never fall in the friend zone. Like and subscribe, you magnificent person.